Okay, got a little bit ahead of me there. I still can't figure out. I need to plug in my computer. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Esther Manhammer. I'm mayor of the city of Asheville and chair of the Policy, Finance, and HR Committee, which is what this is. And I'd like to welcome you to our June 27th, 2023 remote meeting. All council committee members and staff are participating virtually. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website. We also have an option for the public to listen by phone. For those of you out there today with us, welcome. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the same number, 855-925-2801, and the meeting code 5257. Your phone will be muted and you'll hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers will need to push *3 to enter the speaker queue. I'll now go through and introduce the committee members and staff who are participating virtually. Council and staff, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Councilwoman Maggie Ullman.
Hey, everybody.
Councilwoman Kim Roney.
Good afternoon.
City Manager Deborah Campbell.
Hello.
And our CFO Tony McDowell.
Hello, everyone.
Community and Regional Entertainment Facility Director Chris Coral. I can't tell on my screen. Let's see. Community and Economic Development Director Nikki Reed.
Good afternoon.
And Community Event Manager John Fellman.
Hello.
And Affordable Housing Officer Sasha Brzezinski.
Good afternoon.
All right. And okay, let me hold on. Got to get to another screen. We're going to move into our agenda. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A second.
All right. I have a motion, a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Are we not doing roll call?
I don't know why this is going. Okay. Councilwoman Bray.
Aye.
Aye. Councilwoman Ullman.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move into the first item, which is the 2024 Event Supports Grant and Assistance. And I've got in here that we're going to kick it off with John Fillman. I think that's right.
Hello. I'm John. I'm the Community Event Manager with the Department of Community and Regional Entertainment Facilities. And as soon as we get the slide up, we'll begin. And Alicia, you can advance, please. So the items for consideration today have been long overdue. This is actually great news that we have these key takeaways to share with you. They result from almost 5 years of searching for the right solution for City Council and our community. This is largely a process update, replacing one program with another, but there's a lot of detail in the middle. So we'll move on to the next slide. So other than our presentation on this topic earlier this month to the Planning and Economic Development Committee, we hadn't been to the Planning and Economic Development Committee since 2019, when we shared our recommendations for what would have been our next 3-year partnership cycle. That would have been for calendar years 2020, 2021, and 2022. But we asked the committee at that time after our presentation not to take a vote on our recommendations. And why? Well, that was because just prior to our presentation, we received new legal guidance that strongly recommended we reevaluate the program. And while we were still evaluating all possibilities, we encountered the pandemic. So under the City Manager's Emergency Authority, throughout the pandemic, we continued to support the Asheville City Market, as well as the other events that held city partnership agreements last in 2019. The pandemic extensions, as we call them, could not include labor support. During the pandemic and continuing, our labor capacity is impacted. We were able to continue providing support in several service categories, but we still don't have the labor services to broadly offer staff to work at all of our independent community events. And it's important to remember that legal advises us we must treat all independent events equally. So in the process of figuring out what we were going to do during the pandemic, one thing we decided is to preserve the limited labor resources we had to meet with federal holiday events. Phone call. We were preserving our labor resources because we had these federal holiday events that we needed to continue supporting, and these are city events. So we preserve them under agreements with organizations that help us produce them. It's an all-hands-on-deck effort with all city staff. We preserve the 75% nonprofit discount by adding it to the city's fees and charges. And the discount is now no longer a component of any kind of time-limited program. So in addition to continuing support for our former partners, albeit without labor, we were able to set up contracts for Independence Day, the Juneteenth celebration, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and the holiday parade. And so this history leads us to today's primary recommendation. With respect to legal guidance, we recommend phasing out the Strategic Event Partnership Program and replacing it with a grant to cover eligible city services administered by the Asheville Area Arts Council. We also recommend continued support to the Asheville City Market under an agricultural development agreement because it allows us to support that. And we want to continue supporting the federal holiday commemorations and the 75% discount that's in fees and charges. So the slide in front of you right now is pretty much the basis for the reason why we're here talking about this program, is because the legal guidance explains to us that government support of independent events held in public spaces can't be based on content. So that means any city program that we would offer support to would be based on time, place, and manner, and most likely the least impact on city resources and normal public operations, not the most impact. And so what we're really hoping to share with you right now is that we based on legal's guidance, we can't continue the current program as we had it. And so that's why we're suggesting an alternate plan. Can you advance, please? So I want to talk to you about a little bit about our service delivery changes for events over the years. If you look at the pre-pandemic partnerships, these icons represent different levels of or different service categories that we've provided. The paper and the check mark is permits, the green space is property use, barricades, parking, transit impact, traffic control signs, sanitation, police, and fire or medical services. Those were the service offerings that we provided only to our partners pre-pandemic under the former program. Now, if we go through the pandemic period, the interim partnerships were saying 2020 through 2023, we had to remove our labor resources from those partners, but we still continue to provide traffic control signs, parking, barricades, property use, and permit fees. Can you click once on the slide, Alicia? And one more time. There you go. Thank you. And so this is where we have been for the past, I guess, maybe 2 years. 2020, we didn't have any events, but we preserved the holiday celebrations with all of our support. And we supported the interim partnerships with the limited levels of support. And Alicia, if you'll click one more time, and once more. And here's where we're proposing to go. And that's to continue supporting federal holiday events, to continue supporting those, and offering the partners and any other applicants that would be interested in applying for the support grant, this array of services which we provide to all events. The only difference is the grant would allow those organizations the funds to cover their costs. We also recommend continuing an agricultural partnership with the Asheville Sustainable Agriculture Project for the city market, which we are able to legally continue supporting as a city effort. Next slide, please. So here's how we're reclassifying events. So we'd like to do this. We have the red through green is pretty much like a heavy lift to light lift. So city events are the heaviest lift. Those are our holiday events, all hands on effort. City events produced by staff, those are like parks and recreation events. City assisted events are only a couple different unique contracts where we have the ability to assist those events legally. And number 4 are community event grants, and that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit more now. So I'll go into each of these in more detail next. Next slide, please. Thank you. City events produced by contractors. So here's all of the events we've talked about securing contracts with to produce on the city's behalf. We provide them with cash and in-kind support. The next item, please. These are city events produced by staff. So every department, well, not every department, but a lot of departments produce events. Parks and Recreation does Movies in the Park and Tiny Tykes Day and a lot of other ones. CAPE does National Night Out and a neighborhood festival. Fire Department does Tunnel to Towers 5K. These are events that independent departments do them. We all help each other out to the best of our ability. We don't charge each other for these costs to do these different events for the community. And they all are pretty much handled within our existing budgets, independent department budgets. Next slide. City assisted events. There's really only 2 of these categories. One is the Asheville City Market that we would produce under the Agricultural Development Agreement, and the other is Festival and Gospel in the Park. And the North Carolina general statutes allow the Parks and Recreation departments to produce those types of activities or to help support those types of activities. So that's another that would qualify as city assisted. Next slide. And this is our community event grant with a maximum fund of $76,000 per year available to cover application fees, permit fees, property use fees, traffic control barricades, parking meter closures, and transit impact fees. Those are the same services that are available to all events, whether they receive the grant or not. All of the grant award recipients would also naturally be nonprofit organizations, and so they would be receiving a 75% discount. So this $76,000 is to help them pay for the remaining 25% of those costs. Examples of potential recipients would be our long-standing events that have always ranked in the top of our own evaluations when we were evaluating them based on City Council goals and objectives. I think that under the Asheville Arts Council, we will see the same types of events rise to the top. Of course, Shindig on the Green being one of them, Blue Ridge Pride being another event, Downtown After 5. I can say that I don't know that Leaf Downtown will be returning, and I don't know the future of Goombay, but these are examples of events that could potentially be assisted with this grant. Next slide. So prior to this meeting, we met with the Planning and Economic Development Committee. The committee, there was a recommendation came out of that committee that the maximum fund balance be in alignment with fees and charges, so that if a fee were to increase in year 2 or year 3, that we would have enough funding to cover those fee increases. And so we incorporated a 10% contingency in our draft documents for you there. No action was taken by PED. I think there was a little more time to think about that. We will plan to return to them in July pending the outcome of this meeting. Next slide. So the recommendations that we're asking for you to make to City Council is to recommend City Council phase out the Strategic Event Partnership Program, eliminating in-kind support and fee waivers beyond the 75% discount. Also, that we would recommend the city manager enter into a 3-year agreement with the Asheville Area Arts Council to administer a grant fund to reimburse arts-related nonprofit events conducted within outdoor public spaces for fees and charges and amounts not to exceed $76,000 per year. And lastly, a motion to recommend City Council authorize the city manager to enter into a 3-year agricultural development agreement with the Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project for continuing production of the Asheville City Market. Next slide. Key takeaways, again, this is to address legal concerns, to replace the Arts Council as our grant administrator, continuation of the 75% nonprofit discount, continued support of the Asheville City Market, and continued support for our holiday productions that we contract out on the city's behalf. I believe that's the last slide. Is that right? Yes. Thank you. Okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to call on people.
You go ahead and just call on me.
Okay. Councilwoman Ronan, please.
Thank you. And this may be a question for Brad. I'm not sure. It's been brought to my attention, what is to be done if there's, for example, a recognized hate group that applies to have a grant or a permit? Would we just defer to the management of our grant program, or is there a level of permitting that the city would have to have considered? I think this has come up as other cities are questioning what to do as well.
So yes, Councilwoman Roney, we would be required to permit regardless of content. However, the grant is intended to support arts-based organizations for arts-based programming, as the state allows us to support. And so if a group in that category were to have their plans prepared the year prior to hold an arts-based hate activity, they could potentially apply with the Arts Council to say, we are an arts-based organization, our art is hateful, and we want to display it in the public square. They would be evaluated against the other proposals that we receive. However, our balance is not unlimited, and we have long-standing arts and cultural events in Asheville that would by far outweigh any potential value that I would imagine that other event could even come close to comparing against some of our community events. So they would have to be evaluated, and if they met the criteria through the Arts Council, they could potentially receive an award. But I find that to be a real long stretch that would occur.
And Councilmember Roney, if I can just add to that very briefly, the proposal that John is describing today actually probably moves us further away than we currently are at this point in terms of what protections we might have against those sorts of occurrences. By utilizing the funds that we have, which are currently going to simply support some of the events that have been put on for several years, by transferring that over to administration by the Arts Council, they are able to narrow the purpose of the kind of events that would receive these grant funds to those artistic events which John has listed, essentially very much the caliber of the groups that the city has supported long term, and going forward that would continue to be the case. That particular entity has much greater subjectivity and powers to look deeper into the context of those people seeking grant awards than the city does. So one of the benefits I would suggest is that this particular measure and initiative actually increases the city's ability to avoid some of the potential conflicts that we would have for those kind of events.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion or three motions. Okay. So I guess this is for my two committee members. Are you all ready to move this forward to council, or do you want, do you have more questions, or do you want more time? Or we've received some correspondence on this, but it seems like at this time around, and I want to thank staff for working really hard. I know this has been incredibly time consuming to get this right and to try to preserve what's so important to Asheville culturally, but do it in a way that is legally supportable going forward. So thanks for the creative solutions. But I see you maybe now on there. I don't know if anyone would like to go ahead and make these motions or have any other questions or comments.
Yeah, I can. I'll just jump in and say, I know when this came to PED earlier in this month, I needed a little bit more time just to kind of get myself fully ingrained in it. And I've had that time, and I feel like this is an elegant solution. So I'm prepared to move forward, but I see, Kim, you have your hand up if there's any more question or discussion.
The last question I have is just as a matter of procedure. I know that, we're looking at moving to two different organizations for the management of these contracts or grants. Has equity department reviewed or have a recommendation around this decision?
I want to say that equity has been involved in this process, but not as of recently in our decision to utilize the Arts Council as the grant administrator. That was largely based on the terms in which the city can support events, meaning through cultural and arts related programming, but also because the Arts Council is our regional re-granting organization, also used by Buncombe County for similar work. So we did not engage equity and inclusion in the determination to move with the Arts Council, but they have been involved previously in this process, and were heavily involved in our initial recommendation that we're moving away from at this point.
Thank you for that answer.
I can make a motion. And so I will read them. Make a motion to council phase out the city strategic event partnership program, eliminating in-kind support and fee waivers beyond the 75% nonprofit discount afforded to all applicable events as per the city's current fees and charges manual. I'll do all three unless someone stops me. I'll make a second motion to recommend city council authorize the city manager to enter into a 3-year contract with the Asheville Area Arts Council to administer a grant fund to reimburse arts-related nonprofit events conducted within outdoor public spaces for certain city fees and charges out not to exceed $76,014 a year. And I make a motion to recommend city council authorize the city manager into a 3-year agricultural development agreement with Appalachian Sustainable Agricultural Project for the production of the Asheville City Market.
Did you just do all three?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I mean, I second if we're doing it as one lump, that's what we're doing second.
Yeah. We've got 3 motions. I assume we need to do all 3 when we get to council. Do we need to do all 3 separately at this meeting, Brad?
No, I think if council doesn't need to bifurcate these for any reason, you can vote on them all as a single motion if you're unified on that.
Okay, so we've got one big motion with 3 parts, sort of, and a second. And so I'm going to do a roll call vote. Councilwoman Ullman.
Aye.
And Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Okay, thank you. All right, we have one other item on our agenda today, and that is a Luigi request for 46 Aston micro apartments, and Sasha Bertinsky is going to kick this one off. And let me just say again to John Philman as he exits, thank you so much for all your hard work on all this. And for those who are listening and paying attention to this issue, thank you for hanging in there.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm Sasha Bertinsky, the Affordable Housing Officer, and I have this land use incentive grant request for 46 Aston Street or Aston Flats for you. Next. This is just a few key takeaways really quickly. This is a Luigi application. This is an application for micro units, meaning smaller units, and I'll get into that. There's 47 affordable units in this project, 231 units total. The current Luigi policy doesn't address micro apartment projects. And after some considerations that we'll talk about, staff is recommending that City Council delay consideration of this application until the policy's been revised and can address micro apartments. HCD voted 2-0 on May 16th to temporarily pause consideration of Luigi applications. And that will be at your meeting tonight. And then just last week, HCD voted 2-1 on this presentation, on this kind of issue to delay consideration of 46 Aston. Next. So just some quick background. Aston Flats LLC applied for this Luigi last fall. And because of the calendar, it wasn't heard by HCD until February. It is a micro apartment project, meaning that the units are 200 to 350 square feet. They don't have full kitchens, but they do have kitchenettes with a microwave and maybe a smaller refrigerator. On each floor, there is a larger common kitchen and a larger lounge or social living room area. Our Luigi policy doesn't address these types of projects specifically, and the city has not developed policies or practices around these types of units. Next. So because of this lack of clarity, HCD requested that AHAC, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, in February, they asked them to look at the policy in regards to micro apartment requests. They spent a lot of time reviewing the policy and different issues, and in May came back to HCD with a recommendation to temporarily pause consideration of applications and approvals for these types of projects until the policy has been revised. And as I said earlier, HCD recommended approval of this recommendation in May. Next. So AHAC also said, it wasn't just a simple vote like that, but they also said if council wants to proceed with the consideration of these types of projects, they would recommend having the developers fully address their concerns. And so here's a list of some of their concerns. Whether the incentive should be adjusted to account for smaller units, whether there's market demand for this type of smaller units among those folks looking for affordable housing, and whether or not micro housing projects need subsidies in order to be built. And I think, and then the last one is around, do micro apartments meet the standards for vouchers, whether it be from the VA or housing choice vouchers? That one we have settled and they do meet those standards. I think the real core question here is, are incentives needed? And if so, how much of an incentive is appropriate, given that we are also, like another Luigi might be for 1 and 2 bedroom units, which are much bigger. Next. So now I'm going to speak just to this project because that is what you are considering today. So here's the point summary for this project. They meet the baseline, of course, of 20% of the units being affordable and 80% AMI. They are willing to accept vouchers for units, which is 10 points. Their location is like the big winner here for this project because it is very close to the transit center. So because it is so difficult to develop in downtown, we give more points for projects in the central business district. And then their locations near transit and job center, all of those things get them a lot more points. We have an energy efficiency or Energy Star earning some points, and green building certification, and then universal design in 20% of the units. So that gives them a total points of 105 points or 21 years of taxes granted to the owner. Next. And just really briefly, here's the location. This is a level 2 project, and it has gone through all of its zoning entitlement process. So it has been to Planning and Zoning Commission and received approval. You can see the red outline for the parcel. There is an existing building there that will remain, and there's 2 buildings as a part of this project. And then to the left, you can see the green roof of the transit center right there. So next. And here's an exterior rendering of one building in the foreground and another building in the background. Next. So just really quickly, the specifics of this request, the total grant is estimated at 1.953 million over 21 years. And that equates to a subsidy of 41,566 per unit, which is lower than our 80,000 policy limit for 80% AMI households. Then at year 21, we would receive the full tax value from the property. Because our baseline for this program is 20 years of affordability, but the policy does say you can qualify for 21 years, but we want to match. We don't want a scenario where we're paying a subsidy for a project that's no longer affordable. So we ask developers to match it. So either 20 years of payments for 20 years of affordability or 21 and 21. You can have less, you can have less payments in terms of years for the 20 years, but we don't, we want to match it if it's over 20 years. Next. So here's our analysis of this. Delaying this decision, and that is our staff recommendation. If you delay the decision on this micro apartment project, it's not a reflection on the overall quality of this project. This project will provide housing in a central location where residents can access many jobs and services without having to own a car, which is a great thing. The role of the land use incentive grant, however, is to subsidize the affordable units, not necessarily make the project happen per se. As I said earlier, the developer has confirmed with the Housing Authority and the Veterans Administration that the units meet the voucher standards. According to the voucher handbook, these are not categorized as single room occupancy, so we consider them to be efficiencies or studios, and that just has something to do with the rent structure. We have rents for efficiencies and studios, but not if it was a single room occupancy. We don't have a rent structure for that. And then several of the concerns raised by AHAC haven't been addressed. Market demand, whether or not the subsidies are needed for these units to be affordable, and whether the incentive should be lower amount because there's a smaller unit size. Next. So the pros of delaying the decision is that, this policy was not really designed with this type of development in mind. And it doesn't address some of these issues that have been brought up. If there's a delay in consideration, that gives us more time to revise the policy in a more holistic way, and it gives council more time and information to consider about these types of projects. We also are about to embark on an affordable housing plan in the next month or two, and we will have the advantage of having some national experts that can help advise us on this type of development. A con of following staff's recommendation is, the delay will compromise the certainty for the developer in terms of around subsidies for affordable units. Next. So there's no fiscal impact if you follow the staff recommendation. If you were to approve this, if council, approves this going forward, there is a tax impact every year of approximately $93,000 that we would be paying for 21 years for a total of $1.9 million. And that's it for that. Next. So HCD, as I said earlier, voted 2-1 last week to delay consideration of this project for Luigi, and this will be going to City Council next month. Next. And as I've alluded to, we are recommending a delay or pausing consideration of this project, as well as projects like this in general, but because the Luigi policy doesn't adequately address these types of projects. Next, and I think it's just the key takeaways again, and that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. And the developer, David Moritz and Scott Shapiro, are both here as well.
Who was first?
Go for it, Kim.
I'm just going to ask the same question that I always ask about new development, and that's, is there a plan for renewable energy at this location, and or is the design friendly to future renewable energy? That would be a question most likely for the developer.
Right. David or Scott, would you like to address that question?
Yeah, I can address it. The direct answer to that in terms of like solar panels and those kind of technical specifications that are considered renewable, we're not far enough in the detailed design yet, but something we will consider. The building will be built using green standards. ADA compliant and all that. I will say this, that the location of it and the size of the units make it one of the most sustainable type of apartments you can build in Asheville. We're building 231 units on less than half an acre of land, whereas the amount of land they use for that size of project in Buncombe County would be, acres and acres of land. Most recently, there was 500 units approved on 100 acres. That's going to require complete clear cutting of a mountainside. And so we believe that, building downtown next to the bus terminal and having smaller units, and we don't offer parking, will encourage people to walk, and they can be able to walk to work, which we think is the most sustainable, will have the most sustainable impact. And that's something we're very excited about. In terms of solar panels and other technology, we're not really far enough on the design yet to know whether or not we're going to do that. I don't know, Scott, does that answer your question, Kim? Scott, do you have anything to add?
In a way, I've modified my question more recently, because what I found is that if I just limited it to asking if there was a plan for a current use, then a lot of times development was designed for air conditioning units to be as close as possible to the unit, which meant they were scattered all over the roof, and it limited the possibility for a future installation. So it's both, is there a current plan, but also is it possible for the design to ensure there's not limitations or barriers put in place?
Yeah, so we're at the preliminary design phase with the renderings and the units, and we're still going to need to work through it on the detailed construction drawings. So we haven't selected the HVAC system yet for this project. So it's a little early for us to say for sure. I don't know. Scott,
Yeah.
do you want to add anything?
Yeah, can you hear me? Generally, we try to put in the most energy efficient HVAC systems available, so they're use less energy, and those typically have the equipment on both in the unit and also on the roof. So that's it's more energy efficient than having a unit just go right in your window. So again, we're used to, I'm based in Seattle. We're used to the most energy efficient construction here, as well as the code here. So that's what we like to do in other markets as well. And so if the city or our energy providers who provides electric to our building uses a different source, we're able to, accommodate that source. And if it makes sense at some point, as David said, to add solar, then we will. It depends on what's available at the time and as we go through our plans. But our building is structurally sound to be able to accommodate solar panels.
Thanks.
The questions I had are for staff, or like my first ones is one, have we approved any Luigi's for micro units before?
We did approve one for with the same developer back in, I want to say it was last spring, maybe. It was 217 Hilliard, so not far from this. It's a smaller project, so it's 80 total units and 16 affordable units. So, and also a much smaller grant.
Okay. And then my second is, just remind me, are we currently varying the grant amount based on 1 or 3 bedroom units?
We're not. I mean, it's definitely something we've talked internally about, like, should the incentive take into consideration, not even another way to think about it instead of unit size would be how many people can live there, right? So like a 3-bedroom unit's going to accommodate a lot more people than a 1-bedroom. So
Right.
a question for sure for our policy revisions.
Yeah, I guess, thanks. I mean, both of those questions kind of flow into kind of where I'm landing on this is like the concern from HCD of like, should they have a lower amount due to the smaller unit sizes. I don't know. It just kind of feels a little unfair based on the rules that we have now. And then I think the fact that we've already approved one of these in the past, I guess it just feels like if we're wanting to make a change to the Luigi, great, let's do a step back. But the fact that this is already in play, I mean, how are we going to get the development community to align to our housing goals if we change the rules midstream? Also, for micro units in general, like we need some seriously creative solutions to the problems that we're facing with housing. And you know, some of the question marks that HCD have of like, we're not sure about the market demand. My kind of thought is like, yeah, we need to experiment with some things to see if we can come up with some new approaches, because we know that expensive single family home units is not meeting our problem. And so I don't know, I guess for those reasons, I'm inclined to support this for Luigi.
I will say, just to be super clear, this is just a point of information, really. These grants, and maybe this is obvious to everyone, but they are at council's discretion, right? Because they are voluntary. They're voluntary on our part, and the policy does make reference to council having the ability to vary the grant amount or number of years if they so choose. And it doesn't give you any guidance for how to do that, or when to do that, or why to do it, but it just says you have the power to do that. So
I wonder if that's I think that there's a lot of improvement that any policy can take. And what I think I hear you saying is like there's a lot of subjectivity in it currently. I hear that, and perhaps a way to move, if we do find others who are unsupportive of awarding a Luigi, maybe there's a way to be flexible with the terms currently. I mean, given that HCD was a 2-1 vote, there might not be a quorum, if you will, to move this forward, but I'd be open if folks feel like the current terms they aren't comfortable with, if there's like a renegotiation of some of those terms, I'd be open to that. I just feel like categorically the amount of work that's been put into trying to solve a housing crisis really creatively, and I think in a sustainable way by being so dense and right downtown, I feel like government needs to help with the safety net for some of that experimentation sometime, so long as it doesn't harm people directly. And I think that this is an experiment I want to see played out to see if it can help us as a tool in our tool belt.
Hey, so I have a little bit of scheduling conflict. I've got to be next door in the courthouse for a 3:00 hearing, so I'm leaving. And so will somebody help close this one out? And also, if there's anyone for public comment at the end of the meeting. Okay.
Sure.
I don't
know. Step two, otherwise I can kind of take the mic and get us through towards the end. Esther, do you have an opinion on this before you go?
Well, I guess I was curious to hear Sasha remind us that we have done a Luigi grant for micro units once before, which honestly, I didn't remember that about that last project, but that doesn't mean anything. That was a while ago, and we've done a lot of projects since then. So that is concerning to me in terms of setting a precedent and holding this one up before we change the policy. So right now I'm kind of divided. I think I would support it to move it forward to council so we can have a full council discussion on it. But even if we don't support it, it will move on to council anyway. So because it's already on the agenda. So even if the committee decided not to take a vote on it today, I think that's also fine since it is already calendared, and we're going to have a full council discussion on it. So is that helpful? Maybe not. But all right, that's my 2 cents. All right, thanks you all. I'm sorry, I'm gonna scoot out of here.
Thanks, Esther.
I did review the HCD meeting, and I know we're looking specifically at the financial part of this, and I do have the same questions around number of units. It's also, it's a tool towards addressing a future of affordability, and I would love for us to know better how this tool has equitable outcomes or doesn't. And we keep talking around this, but it's hard to look right at it when the system is still the ball is still rolling. So I support the HCD recommendation to pause including this project while we look at the outcomes that we're trying to get at.
So I think between the three of us, I don't think that we're in the similar spot that I don't know that anyone, and Esther just left to make a motion, but I think Esther's point that it's already scheduled just means we continue to move on to council, but we don't necessarily have a vote from this committee. We just agree that we're eager for a full council conversation. Looking to Kim, does that sound right? Staff, does that sound... Does that meet the requirements you need to move on to council, Sasha?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I'm looking at Brad in case there's any legal need for a vote. It's okay to just move forward, I guess.
I think that you have two members here. If you all would like to vote simply to move it forward to council to effectuate that recommendation, that would have it on the record so that we have a complete set of minutes from this particular action item. If you don't vote, council can still add it to the agenda. We would just show no report or no vote coming from this body. Either one of those is fine, and we could still move it forward to council in either case.
Since we're not getting very much into the weeds of the finances, I would prefer to move forward without a recommendation from this body.
It works for me. All right.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that as well, since it seems like that there are two different opinions. So I think that's a wise choice.
Okay. Well, thanks to Scott and David for joining. Sasha, as always, doing a really thorough job, and look forward to having this conversation as a full council body next month. And then just to close out so that was our third item on the agenda. We have one more and final item of this agenda, and that's item 4, public comment. Are there any public comments in the wings?
There are no callers in the queue.
All right. Thanks, Alicia. Well, I guess with that, we are adjourned, unless there's anything else, Kim, that you wanted to float today. Me either. So I'll see you all in a couple hours at our council meeting. Thanks, everybody. Take care.